With the 5 minutes, I go start with the first person alphabetically, and that is Paul Harper. And so I will turn on my clock. I need to get the timer here. And that's why I will be looking down most of the time because I'll be looking at my cell phone timer. All right, so Mr. Harper, you have 5 minutes. You're on.
All right. Well, just as an introduction, I'm the father of two daughters. I've been in public service most of my adult life. I started as a special education teacher and decided that maybe special education wasn't for me and went to law school and then have worked as a state attorney for 20 years. 7.5 years of that was as the general counsel to Missouri State Auditor Nicole Galloway. Public education is very important to me. I've been telling a story about my aunt, and the more I tell it, the more people jump out of the woodwork and say, hey, she was my teacher. So my great aunt Florence was a teacher in the Lebanon School District. And when I was a little kid, we would always stop by her house when we went to my grandparents. My grandparents had a small farm outside of Hartville, Missouri. But we had our little rituals, and I would go visit my Aunt Florence. She would make black-eyed peas for lunch, and then we'd go to eat ice cream. One of the things she always talked about was how much she loved teaching. She was the only person I knew in my family who actually had gone to college before me. She had a master's degree, and she ended up being a principal there in Lebanon, Missouri. She was such a big influence in our family that about half of my cousins ended up teachers. So public education runs in my family. Even though I didn't end up sticking with it, my cousins certainly did. I think Columbia Public Schools is a great district. When I did my student teaching, I did my student teaching in the Columbia School District. In fact, my two children my oldest graduated from Rockbridge. My youngest is about to. I actually did my student teaching in Rockbridge High School. So even though I've bounced in and out of Columbia, during a lot of my career, it's certainly one of the reasons why I came back was so that my children could be taught in the Columbia Public Schools. But I do think that the Columbia Public Schools has some trying times ahead. We have a teacher and hourly employee recruitment crisis. We need to pay our teachers better. And we also need to support our teachers better. The only way our children are going to learn is if we have good teachers in the district. And the only way we're going to be able to maintain good teachers in the district is if we pay them well and if we give them support. So right now, the Columbia Public School is shooting for the middle of the pack whenever it comes to pay. Well, the problem is we're the 5th largest school district in the state. We are competing statewide. We are not going to get the best teachers if we're shooting for the middle of the pack. Therefore, I think that we should pay and support our teachers better. We all know that some of the test scores that have come out have not been the best. The most jarring issue for me is the discrepancy in some of our schools. We had schools that were in the 80%, and we had schools in the 20%. We need to be supporting all of our students and giving all of our students what they need to learn and to thrive. And finally, I believe in transparency and accountability. It was part of the auditor's office that our job was literally to shine the light on political subdivisions when they were doing right and when they were doing wrong. I think I have a professional record of doing that. I'd like to bring that professional record into the district and to serve my community. I also think that the district needs to do a few things to be a little bit more transparent. I'd like to see more meetings online. I'd like to see meetings recorded. I'd like to see more information online as far as communication of what the board is doing. And I believe in financial transparency. And so I know it's very hard to know what this district is paying for. I'd like to see a little bit more financial information online. So that's a little bit about myself. And I hope to get your support.
Okay. Thank you. And now, Mr. Potter, it's your turn.
Yes, my name's John Potter. I grew up in Columbia. I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school in Columbia. I grew up in a single mother household. I'm biracial. Um, I grew up on free and reduced lunch. I grew up in a few different poor neighborhoods in Columbia. I have Me and my wife have three children at the district, two in elementary and one in middle school. Next year, I'll have one in elementary, one in middle school, and one in high school. We started getting involved in the district about 2.5 years ago during the shutdowns. We started to realize the impact of the school on our children, and so we wanted to open the school back up after it was shut down for a couple months. We started seeing the negative impacts it was having on our kids and on their education and on their mental health. So me and my wife made a petition and tried to get parents and staff to sign a petition to get the kids back in school. And during that process, we formed a parents advocacy group, and we ended up starting a group for transparency and accountability in the district. And it's up to about 1,600 members now, and is a very good tool in the community for parents and CPS staff to feel like their voices are being heard and to know that they're not alone. When I first started going to school board meetings and making public comments, my concerns went unanswered because it was just one of me. And so I knew that the district wouldn't listen to individuals. And so I knew it was going to take a group in order for the district to actually pay attention to us. And once that group formed, we've done some things in the district to help. I think that the masking situation and the schools opening was sped up because of the pressure that our advocacy group put on the school district. And so through all this, I've developed a relationship with a lot of CPS staff members and parents. And we've been pointing out and coming across a lot of issues in the district other than the original issues we got involved with. And so we've brought these things to light. We lost a lot of trust during the shutdowns. And so my main focus has been, let's build the trust with transparency. I think a lot of parents get caught off guard from a lot of the stuff coming out of CPS right now. And CPS really is just not a transparent organization. They're always trying to cover things up or push things under the rug. And a good example of this is a letter that I posted in the group of 19 concerned teachers or staff members at Lang Elementary, where they said they haven't had an administrator come into their building from the district in 5 years. And they're one of our marginalized communities. And if you read the letter, it talks about how the admin in the building and at the district is not supporting teachers. And this was referenced in the audit as well. So I really want to focus on behavior issues in the district, which I think correlate with teacher retention. And in order to keep our teachers and get more teachers, we have to support them in behavioral issues when it comes to the district and administration helping and creating policies that really hold kids accountable for their actions. So one of my main things is get back to the basics, because I think there's a lot of things going on in the district that distract our teachers and educators from education. Thank you.
Okay, right under the wire. All right, now, are there any questions from this group? I don't see any hands. Oh, wait. Maybe. Are there any hands up? Usually this is a very questioning group.
Not yet. Oh, here we go. Here's one in the chat. Are you ready?
Okay.
There are
Yeah,
so many alarming attacks on public education today. What can the school board do, perhaps working with administration and staff, to help convince Missourians to support and value the public schools? That's a question from David Robinson. Great question.
Okay, yes, and if it's in writing, so you can look at it. The first person to answer a question will be Mr. Potter, since he was second to introduce.
Yeah, I think we have to build relationships back up in the community. Once the school shutdowns really exacerbated public relations from the district and parents not being wanted in the school, and the trust has been disrupted in our community. And like I said, with transparency, even if we don't agree on the topics or which way the board's going or which way the district's going, if we're transparent about what's going on, that's going to build trust. Parents aren't going to be caught off guard, and staff's not going to be caught off guard. And when you lead with transparency, you build trust. And I think that's why I started the parent advocacy group, is to start building those much needed resources in our community back up, because we have to all help in the education of our children.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Mr. I like to see where I'm talking to. Mr. Harper, your turn.
I'm a big believer that we need to bring our stakeholders back into the school a little more than we have in recent times. It does take a community to educate our children, and we need to start bringing more of those people from the community back in. I'd like to see more volunteers in the school. I understand that since COVID, a lot of our volunteers and a lot of our community organizations don't have the access to the school that they used to. I'd like to see that improve. I actually agree with John on the fact that that we do need to be a little more transparent. What I would like to see is the work, for example, work sessions are no longer broadcast online. So they're at 7:30 in the morning, and it's very hard for people who work to get to them. I believe that in order to know what is going on with the school district, we need to be more accessible to the people in the district. There are a lot of people who can't attend those in-person meetings. Well, what do? We can put them on, we can put them online, and we can record them and put that out there so that people who can't attend the meetings can actually know what's going on from the board perspective, from the work sessions, the finance committee, and the other committees of the board. And I think that knowing what's going on will always help. But again, I do think we need to have our stakeholders back, and I do think we need to approach our stakeholders in meaningful ways and get them back into the decision-making process.
All right, thank you. I see Alice has her hand up. Alice?
Okay, I wanted just some clarification from one of the speakers when he said, I guess did he mean that the administrative office, the superintendent's office, is not in the schools when he mentioned that? And secondly, when you talked about concerns about the school shutdown, well, schools over most of the country shut down for as long a period or longer than Columbia Public Schools. And masking, there's disagreement on it, but it's what our surgeons do when they're around sick people. And we certainly want to make sure our teachers are protected in the schools when there are not vaccinations. But anyway, perhaps you could comment on that and clarify the comment about the administrator who's not in the schools. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now I forgot to mention, all the questions should be addressed to both candidates. We
Oh,
gotta
yeah,
have
those
both of
as
them.
to both. Yeah, sure.
And so, I'd say, all right, during the 2 minutes, Mr. um, Potter can answer at least the first part, but I think both of them can answer. What did you think about the masking rules? Mr. Harper, you're first this time.
Well, I've actually heard from the teachers too. A lot of the teachers do say that they don't have a lot of contact with administrators. I think that administrators should be in the building a little bit more, should be engaging with, quite frankly, again, all stakeholders. Teachers are one of the stakeholders, community partners, parents, students. So, I believe that should be happening. I don't know specifically what buildings they have or have not been in the last 5 years, but I imagine that with COVID, it was a little harder in some of those years. As far as COVID, I'm not interested in a backwards look. I'm interested in a forwards look. What we found during COVID is that we had some cracks in our school district, and those cracks turned into crevices. Well, moving forward, we need to fix those. And how do we fix those? Well, we just had 2 different audits that actually help put the guideposts in on the process moving forward. So we have the special ed audit that tells us that some of our special education processes need fixing. We've got the curriculum audit that, quite frankly, opens up that we don't even have curriculum for many of our classes. So what do we need to do? We need to start making plans. We need to bring in our stakeholders. We need to get input on those plans. And then we need to set those in writing. We need to make sure that we're getting out to the public exactly what those plans are and what those processes are. And then the school board needs to hold the district to those plans. Those plans need to have benchmarks that we must reach. And the board needs to make sure that at all times the superintendent is meeting or exceeding those benchmarks so that our children have a chance to learn.
Thank you. Mr. Potter, wherever you are.
Yeah. In regards to the administrators not being in the buildings, the district administrators, they need to be seen more, I think, by employees in the district. I think they need to be engaged more, especially in our minority communities and underprivileged communities. And that wasn't the case when dealing with Lang. And I'm sure that's not the case, or that's the case when dealing with a lot of other schools in our district. We got this information also from the special education audit. And, if I was on the board, I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And that's talking to these parents, talking to these teachers of these schools, and figuring out ways to bring attention to their situations that just aren't being dealt with. The 19 teachers that wrote the letter gave it to me because they exhausted their the normal procedure for dealing with issues. They took it to the in-school administration and was ignored. They took it to their teachers union and was ignored. And then they took it to the district administration and was ignored. And so it became a last resort for these teachers to pass this on to me, because we have a following where people know that they're not by themselves. And so we brought attention to that issue, and Michelle Baumstark wrote a letter saying that she's going to have some administrators from the district come into the school and talk to everybody and kind of figure out what's going on. So I think that's a good example of the power that when you have other voices that are in the community that have the same goal of educating kids.
Well, thank you. I see that there's some stuff on chat now. Yeah, David Mallory says, everyone, including you, gets to vote for 3 candidates. I assume you'll vote for yourself. Are there two other candidates you would be willing to endorse at this time? Mr. Potter?
No, I'm recommending that you only vote for two candidates. I've had interactions with all the other candidates, and I do like them personally, and I think they are passionate about the district, but we need big change in the district, and I'm just not seeing that enough from the other candidates. I recommend voting for myself and Chuck only. The saying is, you know what to do, vote for two. If we want big change, we got to stop doing what we've been doing. And so when it comes to the monopolization of the teachers union endorsement of candidates, we have to think outside the box. We have to get diverse opinions and a diverse thought on the board. There's a lot of the same ideologies on the board and candidates that are running for the board, and that's kind of some of it, not all of it, but some of it has got us where we're at. And so we shouldn't double down on policies and procedures that are failing. SRG is a perfect example of that. We want to hold all our kids to a higher standard, like the audit pointed out, and SRG, standard reference grading, or equity grading, does not do that. And we need to be accountable for what policies and things that have been implemented in the district. And if people are defending them because they rooted for them when they were being implemented, or voted for them when they were being implemented, or agree with organizations that has pushed it onto the district, we need big change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harper?
I think most of the candidates do have something to offer, and we all have our strengths. Certainly, I feel like I'm the strongest candidate, and I'm going to vote for myself as my first choice. Now, I would point out that both the Sierra Club and the teachers unions endorsed myself, John Lyman, and April Farrow. I believe that they are quite frankly, we're probably the strongest candidates, but I don't want to say anything bad about the others, because everybody has a place. I think we need to make sure that we're electing somebody who understands the role of the board, understands what the board needs to do, understand that we do need to set out plans and set the standards for the district, and ensure that the culture changes and becomes better for our children.
Hey, thank you. Let's see, are there any, I see Kristen Boland's hand is up. Kristen, do you have a question?
Yes, thanks, Leslie. I asked this question in previous weeks, and I want to ask you both. Gun safety is certainly a top issue during many elections, and it's definitely a top issue for me this election. So I wanted to ask you both what role you see our school board, the members or the board itself, having to play in addressing gun violence in our community in all of its forms, not simply school violence, but gun violence more broadly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harper, it's your turn.
I think the board does have a role to play. I think we need to have responsible policies. But one thing that I'd like to note is the kids are asking for it. We just had a presentation in the last board meeting where a group of students came begging begging maybe is too strong of a word, asking the school board to do something. One of the things that they did, which I think sounds like a great idea, is they talked about the evolved technology. That instead of metal detectors, this new technology that detects things in our modern times. I think that's great. I think they talked about safe storage. They talked about ensuring that students actually had some medical training, which is amazing to me that these students came to talk about that. And of course, they talked about mental health. We can't deny that there are problems with mental health. I don't think the mental health necessarily causes the gun crisis, but I do think that the kids are reaching out to us and saying, help us. I think we have to listen. And I think we have to bring in, again, community partners. We've got a lot of community partners that can help with mental health. We've got the Bridge program. We've got programs with the county. We've got programs with the university. We need to bring all those in to help our kids. But again, we need to listen to them. They're asking for it. We need to do something.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Potter?
Yes. Yeah, I'd like to echo what Harper said. Absolutely, the students that brought that presentation to the board did an excellent job and had a lot of good recommendations for providing that safety in the community. Another thing that I would add to it would be the way to stop gun violence is with a gun. So I would recommend the same way that the school board members are protected during their school board meetings with armed officers or armed unclosed officers. I don't know if anybody's concealed and carrying in there, but I think if with the right training, I think we should permit certain staff to, if they want to, have concealed carry weapons in the school in order to defend the children if it comes down to that. Also, locked schools and keeping the kids safe behind doors and having some type of plan, just like in a tornado or an earthquake or something like that. I think there needs to be some type of emergency training, and I think Columbia is doing a pretty good job when it comes to that. And heaven forbid that when a situation does arise, we can tackle it professionally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go back to the chat.
Yeah, I think the oldest question, just trying to scroll up, make sure we didn't miss any, would be, this is a question from Dave Rathel. Will the candidates summarize their understanding of current CPS suspension practices? Should students be suspended from school ever rather than be assigned to alternative classes for some duration?
Okay. Should students be suspended from school ever or rather than be assigned to alternative classes? Mr. Potter.
It depends on what the behavioral issues are or for the reason for the suspension. I think that there's plenty of intervention methods in place at CPS to keep kids in the classroom. Ultimately, during the shutdowns, we learned that we want the kids in the classroom, and not only in the classroom, but in an educational environment in the classroom, and to ensure that all the students are getting that educational environment. If there is a disrupted student based on behavior or special needs, then they might have to be taken out of the class in order to provide the educational environment for the rest of the class. But we need to have a space for them too, where they can be in an educational environment where they can learn as well. So not all kids need to be suspended, but when it's repetitive and dangerous and interrupting the learning environment, something for the other students, something does have to be done. And so I don't want to kick any kids out of school. I want to give them plenty of opportunities and chances to curb their behavior and have counselors and staff work with students in order to keep them in the classroom. But the ultimate goal of the educational system is to educate. So we want to maintain that educational environment for all students. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Harper.
One of the things that we learned from our audits is that we've not been consistent with discipline. We have different discipline philosophies, and unfortunately, while any of those might work individually, it doesn't work whenever some administrators are using one and some are using another. I'm going to use a prop for a second. Actually, I've been doing my homework. This is the discipline matrix. I've been viewing it to see what the new matrix is, because some things have changed since those audits, and they have improved their discipline matrix. However, there needs to be more education to the teachers on what to do. There need to be more behavioral supports in our classrooms in order for this matrix to work. And we need to put those supports in place. But again, we need to have those plans, and we need to develop them, and we need to get them out. And right now, our communication and our training isn't quite there for our teachers yet whenever it comes to these discipline matrices.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't see a hand, but I do see Scott Orr
Yep.
has a question. 3 current board members didn't vote to extend the superintendent's contract. Would either of you replace the current superintendent? Mr. Harper?
Well, let me talk about that vote a little bit. So they voted to extend the contract before they had followed the policies. That disturbs me, because the purpose of the board is to actually set forth the policies and ensure that they're followed. Doesn't do any good if the board's not following their own policies. So I don't like the fact that the board superseded their own policies. I've had some conversations with Dr. Yearwood. I think that he's trying to do the right thing. As far as would I keep him or not, certainly right now we would keep him because he has an extended contract. I would make sure that the next time around, before I voted for that we follow the policy. We do the evaluation. We look at those evaluations. We have a conversation about why he should or should not be retained. And then we follow the process and vote. We should not supersede the process and make an ad hoc decision, because that's been the problem of this board, is that they make decisions in the heat of whatever they're doing and don't follow their plans. Well, we're a board that sets guidelines. We're a board that sets policies. We need to be following those guidelines and policies ourselves.
Thank you. Mr. Potter?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Paul said there. Now, as far as would I vote to get rid of Yearwood? No, I wouldn't. I think we need to give him a little bit of room to be able to start building a long-term plan for the district. I think that's kind of hard to do before you get that 3-year contract. And so I would like to give him a chance to implement some of the stuff that he's thinking about and that he's proposed to the district, and go from there. But we definitely need to follow the procedures that are set in place. Thank you.
Why
Thank
didn't
you.
they follow the procedures?
Pardon me?
What?
Why didn't they follow the procedures?
Oh, this is Scott Orr that's asking this, following up on your question.
Yeah, they didn't follow the procedures because Yearwood was, the way it was explained by the board is that Yearwood was ready for his evaluation. And Willoughby said that, well, if he was ready for his evaluation, then we need to give him his evaluation. And I think it was early before the evaluation policy. So he got evaluated earlier than he should have, if I'm correct on that. Yeah.
I think with that, that's the 2 minutes that you've taken up then. But I don't know if Mr. Harper has anything to say about that.
Yeah, a full explanation I don't think has actually been given. Certainly there was a concern that they wanted to ensure that they retained him for a long, that they did retain him. But I don't know exactly why they could not have followed the process. The process would have only taken another 30 days. I'm a big believer that if you set forth a process, you need to follow that process, and you need to explain exactly why you're deviating, and that was not done here.
Okay. I should point out in the chat, Dave Grathel said, I was there. 3 board members declined to vote, saying their procedures had not been followed.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. There's another question in chat.
Yep. I think the next one in line is Scott Crystal's.
Yes.
What are the policies you feel should be implemented right away when you become part of the board?
And I think Mr. Potter is the one that starts this one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if the first thing would be SRG, I think that that's interwoven with all the problems that the district is facing: behavioral issues, attendance issues, and teacher retention. I think them are the 3 main things that we need to be focusing on, and SRG does not help any of those. I've heard from multiple teachers about the stress that SRG is putting on them and parents and students. Also, the SRG does not hold students accountable when it comes to behavior and attendance. And so, especially in high school, if the students find out that they don't have to show up to school to get a good grade, then they're not going to show up. And that's exactly what has been witnessed with the Missouri DESE report. So we're barely at 73% of attendance out of 90. And it's bad. I mean, we have 25% of our students not going to school, and we're implementing standard reference grading or equity grading that doesn't give students any incentive to get back in class. And so my first thing that I would do on there is get rid of SRG. We've been implementing it for 6 years now. There's another 6 years of implementation, and everybody says that you just got to understand it more. You just got to be educated more. You just got to learn more about it. And I'm sorry, but if the teachers can't learn about it, I'm not going to learn about it. I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm a parent. The teachers are struggling with this. So getting SRG out of the district as soon as possible would be my #1 priority.
Okay, Mr. Harper.
Okay, first we have the special ed and the curriculum audit. Those audits laid out a framework for what needs to be changed. So what we need to do is we need to lay out a framework for how to change it, and that mentioned policies that have to be done. I would expect in the retreat that will be coming up for the new board, that is going to be the first thing on the agenda is how we are going to set forth the plan to change the things that are needed based on those 2 audits. Some other things I'd like to see instituted. I've been advocating for a parents advisory committee, especially with regard to special education. I believe that having parents directly interacting with the board as an advisory committee will help the board make decisions, and studies around the nation seem to suggest that when there is such a board, it improves special education and improves outcomes for special education children, because the board can only know what's going on if people tell them. So having that, I'd also like to see, as I said earlier, things like more recordings. We need to make sure that for people who can't attend meetings, or for whatever reason, because of work, because of disability concerns, that we have the meetings recorded, and we actually publish them on the internet.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the group? Okay, Sarah?
Just a follow up to that one, the question I was going to ask, and it kind of ties nicely into that previous question. The standard reference grading is one issue, but I think a lot of people were shocked when the news articles came out talking about that recent audit and how bad attendance was. And as a parent, I don't think probably standard reference grading for the older kids who get themselves to school in the morning, maybe they're making this educated decision, hey, I can get good grades without going. But I don't think a second grader is probably being affected by that as much. So thoughts on other reasons why kids aren't making it to school, and not like they were before COVID, it was not the same. They were better. So something has changed. And what can the school board do to find those students and get them to school?
Good question, Mr. Harper.
That's a tough problem, and we need to engage the community in exactly that. What the board can do is to ensure that we do have good procedures and consequences for doing that. I do think that the children, in order to learn, need to be actually engaged in the school. As far as standards reference grading, yeah, in the early grades, I do think it actually works in the early grades. I admit I have some concerns with standard reference grading simply because we have a lot of high school curriculum that has not been developed. The curriculum audit says we have 40% of our classes with no standardized curriculum. You can't do standards reference grading without actually having standard curriculum. And whenever it comes to that curriculum, we need to be consistent across the schools because we do have a transient population. It's very hard for a child if they're transient, if they move from one school to the other, they're going to leave the curriculum in one school and go into the other. And unless we're following the same plans and the same progression within the curriculum, that student may end up doing the same unit twice, may end up coming in at a place that they're not ready to learn because they haven't gotten the things that they need. So we need to make sure we're standardizing all of that, because whenever a student doesn't come in ready to learn, why should I go to school? Because it's not for me. They're ahead of me or they're behind me. We need to make sure that we are setting the curriculum so that the children are engaged and want to learn. And unfortunately, that curriculum audit says we have not set very good curriculum in a lot of our classes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Potter?
Yes, I think there's two things that are keeping the kids at home. One is the amount of fear that was put on parents and kids in the community when it came to COVID or any type of flu. So if a kid is sniffling, the parents keeping them home. Last year, the district sent a lot of kids home because of the sniffles. And so I think that sent the message to a lot of parents that if your child's sniffling, don't send them to school. If they got a small cough, don't send them to school. If they say their throat hurts, don't send them to school. So there's a lot of things that have changed from now and then before the shutdown. So that's one. I think the second one is that with the shutdowns and the devices that the kids have, I think that the kids and students are addicted to their devices. So they try to find any reason to get out of class to get back on them, So they're in class thinking about their devices, just like any addict would. And then the other thing that I heard while doing a tour at the Blind Boone Center down off of Providence that takes in kids, mostly minority students from off the streets after school and before school, and gives them a learning environment until their parents get off work or their parents are able to come get them, or just being a big resource to the community. And she was asked that question as well, the director there, and she said it's because the kids just don't want to go to school. And I thought that was a very big insight, because she's one-on-one in our minority communities, and that's the big thing, is they've been accustomed for the last 2.5 years to just not want to go to school. Thank you.
Yeah, I see. Let's see, a question from Catherine Jensen. What specific things can the board do to promote teacher retention? Mr. Potter?
Like I said, teacher retention, there was 2 surveys done by the teachers unions in the last year and a half. And the number one reason for teachers leaving the district or leaving the class or not wanting to be teachers anymore is because of the behavior. Student behavior is just it's out of control, and teachers are afraid, and they're tired of being blamed for it. So if we want to retain teachers, we have to fix the behavioral issues in the classroom. And like I said, with SRG, standard reference grading, also equity grading, it doesn't hold the kids accountable for behavior. And I understand maybe in elementary school where there's a learning curve to behavior, and so you don't want that to negatively impact their grade. But when we're in high school and middle school, the kids are growing up, and behavior is graded in real life. So we need to hold the kids accountable with the grading measurements, and SRG just doesn't do that. It's just setting a low bar for our children, and we're seeing a lot of the examples of that in the recent audits and reports. So I would get standard reference grading out of our school. It is hurting our district, and as far as I would get it completely out of our school. I don't even think it's good for elementary kids. I can understand why you would want to do that, but I don't think it is good for them, because we've had it in our elementary schools for up to 6 years now, and there has been no data that says that it has improved the academic performance or learning performance of our students. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Harper?
Well, I think in my introduction, I talked about this a little bit. I believe that we need to be first and foremost, we need to be a competitive employer. We need to be out there recruiting and retaining teachers. We need to have a pay scale that is in line with the top schools. When the board put forth its message for the guidance for their negotiations, they said we need to be in the middle. Well, we don't need to be in the middle. We need to be toward the top as far as pay. Pay is not the only thing. Other benefits are important. We should consider things like on-site childcare facilities for our teachers. We have a lot of young teachers, and we know that childcare is hard to find and very expensive. We need to be helping out our teachers more with wellness. There's a variety of other things. So what are the essential factors for retaining teachers? Well, again, competitive pay, competitive benefit package. We need to promote a positive workplace climate. Culture plays a crucial role in why teachers leave. We need to support and trust our teachers. Some teachers have talked about they're afraid to come to the administration regarding problems. We need a district where teachers can come forth and tell us about the problems. We need to compensate for extra duties. A lot of with the substitute shortage and everything else, we end up teachers are doing a lot of extra duties. If they're going to be doing those extra duties, we need to support them in that way.
That it? Okay. We're getting close to the end. And so I don't know, Sarah, you want me to do one more question or just to have them wind it up?
I was just glancing to see who all, I think everybody at least had a chance.
I'd really like to hear.
Yeah, me too. Well, so the candidates can take a quick look at the chat, and if there's something there you want to address in those last few questions, please feel free to address those. I think probably we should go ahead and wrap it up. I think everybody who has a question in chat has at least already asked one question. That makes me feel a little better.
Okay.
So they did have at least one chance. But yeah, probably time to wrap it up. Thanks.
Time to wrap up because we need to finish on time. And again, I'm going to reset this for 5 minutes. Last time Mr. Harper began, so this time Mr. Potter can start. You have 5 minutes to give us whatever you want to give us.
Right. Yes, I would ask for you guys to vote for me. I've been involved with the district. I'm a community leader. I have been heavily in communication with district employees and community members. And so by me getting on the board, a lot's not going to change from what I've been doing for the last 2 years. The only thing is now is that I'll actually have a vote. So for me, putting me on the board would diversify the thought process going on in the district. And like I said, we need big change. So we need new ideas and we need people that aren't heavily invested in old ideas because it's hard for them to turn around. And so focusing on the SRG is my number one thing. And that goes to my slogan, which is get back to the basics. Standard reference grading is it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 point grading system, and if you hadn't heard, last year, based on standard reference grading, they were giving 50% credit for children for not doing anything. It was an automatic 50%. And once the transparency and accountability group brought that up, the district got rid of it. So it shows that I'm already in the community. I'm already making change in the district through my advocacy group and the community. And when it comes to the standard reference grading again, there's just nothing. Even the districts that it's been implemented in 10 years ago, their academic performances are falling just as fast as ours or faster. And so, I like to see some data on what's going on with that, with what we've already implemented in the last 6 years. Accountability is part of my advocacy group too. And we're not going to be able to hold any board members accountable once this is fully implemented 6 years from now. And so there's a big accountability issue there. Also with the behavior issues, they're only going to continue to get worse if we keep doubling down on these new ideas that have no data to back them up. And that's why I want to get back to the basics. I want to build trust with transparency and improve academic performance with accountability. And so that's my plan. And so far, I think that we've made a minor progress in the district, but with the recent news and things that are going on in this campaign, I think it's bringing a light to the community on what's going on in the district. I've seen a lot of people ask what SRG even is, and I think that's a failure in our community from going from an ABCDF system that's been around for decades to a new 1, 2, 3, 4 system. And more than half the community doesn't even know that they're switching this out, and it's going to be a 12-year process, and that and God knows how much we've paid for all the training so far, because the financial aspect is non-transparent. I think Paul's actually hit on that, that the finances aren't transparent. So we don't even know how much we've spent on the implementation of this in the last 6 years and how much we will spend in the next 6 years on it. And so the teachers are taught in this 1, 2, 3, 4 grading system, that the kids that if the kids are getting a 3, then that's like an A. And so we're not holding our kids to a high expectation if there's a 4-point grading system and we only want them to achieve a 3. And the the floor is almost impossible to achieve. And that's, I think this is an example of artificial outcomes. And I will get it out of the district as fast as I can. Vote for John
All
Potter.
right, Mr. Harper, it's your turn.
All right. Normally I have a standard closing, but I'm going to try to address some of the issues in chat. So first off, what is one of the biggest problems that are coming to our school? It's not actually local. It's the legislature. And I see one question about what the state is doing. The state is attacking our schools. We need to fight that. And I believe that my background helps with that. I've worked for the state for 20 years. I've been a legislative director. I've been a general counsel for a statewide office holder. I'm certainly opposed to all of the attacks in our school. We should not be attacking our LGBT students. We should not be trying to erase history. Those are things that are happening at the legislative level. We as a school board need to be fighting that. As far as the place of religious education in schools, we have a separation of church and state. We need to be separating that. I think what that's really getting to is some of the voucher legislation that's out there. We should not be doing vouchers. I'm a believer in public education. We should not be removing resources from our public schools that are required to teach every student in order to teach people who are already going to private schools. That is inappropriate and we should not be doing it. Let's see, is there anything else I can talk about? I think that's it unless I missed something. So anyway, again, I believe in public schools. I believe in Columbia Public Schools specifically. I brought my children here. I'm involved in the community. I want to continue being involved in the community, and I want to bring my professional experience to work for the school district. I think that's probably all I want to say. Paul Harper for CPS is my website. You can also find me on Facebook. I do long form posts so that you know exactly what I believe in and what I don't believe in. And it just occurred to me, the one last thing I didn't talk about that may or may not be touched on there is the library issues. We should not be using state resources to force our public libraries to ban books. So again, I hope to earn your support. I hope moving forward that when we start having stakeholder meetings that you're involved and you give me ideas to help me run the school board. Thank you.
All right, and thank you both of the candidates for spending their time with us and telling us about themselves. I appreciate it very much. And I will turn this over to Sarah.